Hey guys, welcome to Diligent Canine on Patreon. Thanks for your support. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the process of training your dog and the steps involved. These are what Katie Matthews calls the 3 pillars of dog ownership, and I really like that idea. I'll post a link to give credit where credit is due. I think it's really important for people to understand this process. So usually what people think of when they think of dog training is they immediately jump to obedience training, and that's actually only the 3rd pillar, and these are ordinal, by the way. So um, the order matters in the way that they're developed. So if you want to get to obedience, that's number 3. We've actually got to back up a couple steps. So we back up to number 1. What's that? Well, the first thing you've got to do is manage your dog's behavior. So what that means is, what kind of limits do you put on your dog in the home? What does his daily life and his daily routine look like? These are things like when the dog eats, when it goes to the bathroom, where it is and isn't allowed in the house, things like the kitchen, the bedroom, what have you. Is it allowed, or when is it allowed on furniture, the couches, the bed, things like that. When does it go to its crate? All those sort of things ideally would be thought of before you even bring the dog home. Now, that doesn't always happen, so the sooner you can develop this idea, and it may change, but the sooner you can get an idea of what the dog's daily life is going to look like, and you start implementing those boundaries in a firm and fair way, the better off you're going to be. You do not want to wait till several months down the road where this puppy, say, has not had any boundaries or structure in its life, and it's got to just do whatever it wants, and then you're going to decide to put all these restrictive measures on it. It's not going to go well. So I'll give you an example. When I brought my dog Dean home, he was already almost 2 years old, but my expectations were very low. I intentionally placed them low. I didn't worry about any sort of formal obedience or anything like that. The only thing I asked of him, or a couple of things I asked when I brought him home, was where and when we go to the bathroom, and when to go to your crate. That would be when I go to work and when I go to bed at that time. And what no means. So in other words, what you're not allowed to do. And I would redirect that behavior, by the way, but we'll get into that in a later video. So the first step is managing the dog's behavior. In other words, it's home skills. What kind of boundaries and limitations do you place on the dog at home? The second step then is developing a relationship with your dog. And a lot of people take this for granted, and they say that, of course, my dog loves me, but they actually don't, not right away. You've got to give them a reason to do that. And so what building a relationship with your dog means is proving to them why you matter, why they should care about what you say and what you ask from them. And this doesn't have to be overcomplicated either, but it can't be taken for granted. So things like when you feed the dog, when you water the dog, when you let it out, the dog needs to learn that good things come from you, that you're the source of good things. Building a positive experience with you, building a positive relationship with you, so that the dog will want to listen to you. Again, I'll get into this in later videos. I'm talking about corrections versus punishment, rewards, things like that. So you really want to develop that strong relationship and a bond with your dog. And this doesn't really mean watching Netflix and feeding your dog popcorn. That's something you want to do. It's not necessarily something the dog wants to do. So what bonding and building a relationship with your dog means is that you do things, you do activities, active, emphasis on active, activities with your dog. This might mean playing fetch, playing tug, going for walks. And by the way, walks, a lot of people walk their dogs. I walk my dog. It's a great idea for exercise for you and the dog. Put your damn phone away. The dog most definitely can tell when you're checked out, when you're there and when you're not mentally. And if you're trying to build a relationship with your dog, but you're glued to your phone while you're walking them down the street, you're not really there. And you are building a relationship, but you're teaching the dog that you're not really tuned into them. That's not what you want. You want the opposite. So, be active, play with your dogs, do things with your dog. Again, this comes after you've decided the boundaries and the limitations for the dog in the home, then your quote-unquote training is just playing. You're building a relationship. You're doing things with the dog, spending time with them, teaching them that good things come from you, that you're a person that they want to be around, that they want to hang out with, and they want to listen to. Finally, we get into obedience then, and in a nutshell, what obedience is teaching a dog to respond or perform a certain task when you provide a certain command. And we'll get into a lot of this in later videos as far as like how to shape behaviors, reinforce behaviors, things like that. So if you're following the progression, we've managed the dog's behavior in the home. We've put limitations and boundaries on the dog. Second, we've built a relationship with the dog. So we've taught the dog that we're someone that wants to help them, we want to feed them, we want to care for them, and the good things come from us. We're a person the dog wants to be around and the dog wants to listen to. So then we start teaching the dog, well, what are those things you want me to do? And don't be fooled that some of these steps overlap. So you most definitely can build and reinforce that relationship with the dog through training obedience. That may be the activity that you do with your dog. For example, it may be raining outside and you don't really want to go for a walk. Your dog doesn't want to go for a walk in the rain. You've still got to exercise it. You've still got to do something with it. So your home space might not allow you to play fetch or even tug in the house or the garage or the basement or what have you. But you can train obedience pretty much anywhere. And by the way, you should start in your house, but we can get into that in a later video. So in a nutshell, to summarize the whole video, the dog training process starts with low expectations, and that is setting boundaries and limits on the dog's behavior in your home. Then we can move to building a relationship, building trust with the dog, making them want to be around and want to listen to you. And then finally we teach them what are those things that I'm supposed to do? What are those commands? What are those behaviors? And building association between those commands and those behaviors through reinforcement.